Okay, everyone. Welcome to another demo. This one is going to be Speedtree. We are also going to go over some UVs in Maya as well. So let's get started. So first things first, when you're doing Speedtree or any model for that matter, you want to make sure you analyze your reference and break things down. So what I've done here with my model is I'm gonna look at elements of this plant and then break it down into a model, kind of a blueprint. So for the foxglove, which is the name of this plant, digitalis something, you have some major areas that need to be covered. So you have the main flower petal, which is this, which you see repeated over and over again. So that'll be one piece of our model. And then, I don't know why this is orange. Let's go red. Then we have, as you can see, as the petals in reverse. So the petals start at these buds and then they unfold into the larger flower. So we have an intermediate bud as well, which would be this guy. And then that one can be scaled down to get these. If we were going to do a real up close model, we're going to approach this as a game model. But if you were going to go even higher res, you might want to make another one of these buds. And a typical workflow that wasn't for games, that would be for maybe for feature film quality, you would probably do a blend shape with all of these. So you'd start with, maybe you probably modeled an open flower, and then one more like this, and then you would start blending it and do a blend shape. You'd maybe do 5 or 6 different models for that kind of approach, for a feature film approach. But this will be a little bit more simplified since this is going to be for games. And we also have a at the base of this flower. This picture doesn't show it. Let's see if we can. There is a large leaf structure. You can see it here. So we'll make it just a generic leaf for that leaf here. So I've made a generic leaf for that. So if we look at our model, this is the model that I've done. So we've got major flower here with its base. We have that intermediate bud that I was talking about, and we have our generic leaf. And when we export these, we want them all to be at 0, facing up in Y. You can see with the node down here how they're faced. And our x-axis is pointing this way, so actually we want to rotate these bad boys. I want them facing down a positive z-axis this way. And that'll become more apparent as to why I'm doing that. But the big thing is you want to make sure they're at 0 in origin, because these pivot points will be really important in Speedtree, our alignment. Down there. So there we go. There's our 3 models. So I'm going to rename this to generic leaf. This one's already named, and we'll name this small bud flower. Let's grab all, kill the history on them. Freeze transforms. So now we've got our model. So for this, I haven't done UVs yet. You guys wanted to see a demonstration of that, so we'll go ahead and do that now. So this petal is broken up into two different complete surfaces. You've got the leaves down here and then the main flower. So we'll do this main flower first. For this, it's kind of a cylindrical object, so we'll do a cylindrical UV. Let's bring up our UV editor. This is going to get a little dodgy because usually I do this on two different screens, but let's see what we can do here. So you can see right out of the bat in Maya, for cylindrical mapping, you get something like this. So the next step would be to click on UVs, grab our UVs. Well, got some faces here that find these. That's the base petal here. So I'm gonna grab this shell and just move it out of the way here, so we can work on it. And these are the UVs that we haven't laid out yet. So this is the UVs that Maya gave us. I can tell just by looking at how these are laid out that we have a seam. We want our seam to kind of run up the back. You can see like how this flower is going to be. It's going to open up and turn that way. So we're going to stick our, well, maybe we should put it underneath. Let's just try that. Say this edge here. We'll say we want our seam to run down this edge. So what we need to do is get these connected back up. So I'm going to grab this edge here, and you have cut tool, which seems to be hidden. So right here, this is separate UVs along this edge. So we're going to separate them off. So now we have two different shells here. And then I'm going to sew these edges back together. So this basically, I mean, I'm not going to go through the basics of UVs, but this is how I would do UVs. So I'm going to get these bad boys sewn back together. So to sew them back together, you have this command up here, this button, move and sew. So here we go. So now we should have seam running. Yeah, there we go. So it's running up the center and around the edge. So I want to cut it down here. Because remember, I want this seam to be at the back of the flower. So I'm just gonna cut, grab the shell, grab these edges, and sew them back together again. So that's how we want them. These are still kind of funky looking, so what we're going to do is go to polygons, unfold, and that's going to unfold into a nice, pretty shell. So just down here. So there is that's our main flower UVs, which looks really nice. Typically in my doing like a cylindrical or spherical UV mapping under here, these all work really well, and then you have automatic as well. Which for these guys, let's just show you what automatic does. Grab these, which you can see these are all the UVs. These haven't been assigned yet, so I'm going to go automatic. We're going to get this. So not the most beautiful thing in the world. And you can see how some of these leaves have been spread apart and the stalks in different areas. So to sew these things back together, it's really pretty simple. You're just going to go through and find edges. So now we can see that these edges match to these edges. We're going to move and sew these. I'll move them off as I complete them. It looks like there's some edges down here as well. This is all one piece if you look at the model. This is, isolate this. You can see how I've modeled this. It's all one leaf because this is how it actually looks in nature. The leaves sprout out of this base and then go into the stem here. Yeah, there we go. So I want the base piece here. I want that to be a whole UV shell, and then I want each one of these leaves to be a UV shell as well. So when you click on an edge in the model, you can see it's clicking on the corresponding edge over here. You can see this is this edge and this edge already together. So edges. So I could these two faces belong to this leaf, so I'm just going to cut them off. Shell, bring it out. I want to find out where these two guys have gone. You can see there's a face, two faces here. It looks like it's separated them here. So we're going to cut those off. Take the shell and put it. This is literally just like putting a puzzle together. Do these edges here, here, here. Sew them in. Grab these guys. Sew them in. Now this is the base. See, it's this. So when I grab these faces, see. So I probably want to separate this face off, and then these two faces off so they can attach to their leaves. So I'm just going to grab these edges here, cut those off. So now we've got these shells. So we'll get these back into their leaves. So now we've got that base. So once something's done, if we have an area that's finished, we'll just move it over here with the completed shells. I'm just going to jump around here and grab some of these, sew them back. So looks like this edge should probably be cut. Some of this stuff is just knowing your model. So guys together. I can see this guy needs to be separated. Here. Have it. See, these edges can sew back in. That's a border edge. Now we've got these guys that we can sew back in. So there is, that's a complete leaf. So I'll move that over there. Let's deal with this guy next. Edges. So I can see that these edges here, this face is going to need to be separated off. So cut. Back here. Grab these. So there's another leaf. Another way you could have done this is just do one leaf and UV'd it, and then when you multiplied it around, it would have stuck together. I just didn't think about it when I was doing it. I wanted to show you guys how to do UVs, so what we're doing. So let's grab these guys, find them, sound there. Done. I didn't grab these. So those back together. These guys, so edges. Go over on that leaf. Sew these together. So now we've got our 4 leaves, the base, and this is the stem. You can see as we roll over, it grabs these areas. So that's enough as far as different shells. So now a pretty important thing here that you want to think of as far as UVs is how you use your space. And we're not using like multi-tiles or anything like that. So everything is going to be in this one map. So we have to think about what we want the majority of this space to be. And it's the main petal because if you look at the model, it's the biggest area. So it needs the most area in our UV map in this 0 to 1 space. And these guys will need less area, and then this stem even less. So to do that, we need to go through and create our area. These guys should all be relatively the same size. You can also go to layout, and it'll have shells selected. Layout, I will do it for you. But see, this is a problem. So it took this leaf and made it really big, which isn't using our space as well as it should. So these guys all down here, over here. Figure out how I can scale this up. This is, again, it's like a puzzle analogy. These. And you can spend a lot of time doing this, but I'm not going to right now because it's a demo going, but these UVs are good. Works. So that's our one model. Go ahead, save this. We have 2 other models. So here's Bud, and I am just going to do an automatic UV on these just for time's sake. It's really pretty much the basics of UVs, utilizing your space correctly and just mapping. I can go over this in more detail if it's not explained, I didn't explain it well enough. So every object has its own tile. So you can see we've got this guy here. We have all of our UVs. So these guys are all ready to go. So let's export these. Alright, so there's our UVs, got our OBJs. Now let's crank up Speedtree. So here we are in Speedtree. This is 707, but version 7 or version 6 is just fine. We're going to start off by just making a new tree. So I can't go over every single aspect of Speedtree because it is quite in depth. I'm going to show you how to make this foxglove, which let's get a reference up. I'm going to show you how to make this foxglove and then just a basic tree, which typically you're not going to really need to make a basic tree because Speedtree comes with a lot of basic trees. I will show you the process of how to make one. It's still looking at our here. Alright, so going back to our reference, we have a main stem, and from that stem we have our main flowers, our buds, and our leaves down here. So we want to look at the structure of this. So we see that we have some smaller leaves down here, which we'll use our generic leaf, and then we have these buds, which are about full size, but you see they start getting a bit smaller as they go up towards the top, and they kind of translate into the small buds and then go all the way up. So we need to think about this in terms of curves. So as far as size and placement, everything in Speedtree is controlled through curves, through like profile curves, scaling curves. So the best way for me to do that is to show you. So let's right click on our tree root node. We're going to go to trunks and make a stalk. So here is a basic stalk Speedtree. So you see this is our guy, our reference guy, so this thing's obviously way too big. So down here you have your node generator, which you have your tree and your branching nodes off the main tree. This is like your global node, controls the entire plant or tree. You have mesh forces and forces, which we'll get into forces later. We deal with mesh forces. But when you click on your node, you get all your options over here. So all of these drop downs contain all the parameters in our tree. So generation is the first one that you normally deal with if you're going to deal with flowers. So, but on a stalk, we don't have to deal with that. You have forces, which is gravity, things like that. Geometry types, don't have to worry about. We have these random seeds, which randomize different things in Speedtree. Segments, this deals with wireframe here. Wireframe. You can see our segments. So I'm going to want this tree to be quads. So I'm going to go back to the root node, and under geometry, I want to switch these all to quads. Just because I want to. It can be quads or triangles, it's up to you. But under segments, this controls our resolution. You can see as I pull this multiplier up and down, it changes the resolution, and you can see in the heads-up display how your totals are. So we want to pull this pretty far down since this is going to be very small. Let's go back to realistic here. So we'll deal with we'll come back to the segments, but first we're going to go up to generation. In this under here, you've got a bunch of different attributes that control frequency, which is how many of an object you have at this node, orientation, steps. Cover these when we get to the flower. But the one we have to deal with the most right now is the size scaler. So we've got to get this guy smaller, the plant size. And another thing I always do when dealing with this is I go to displacement and just turn displacement off down to 0. You can see those little ribs went away. And then under spine, which the spine is like the backbone of this object. So you can control length, start angle, and a lot of this stuff you just futz around with it and you'll see what it actually does. Start angle to 0. Perturbance, this is what's giving it that shape. Which sometimes it's cool, but for ours we don't really want it right now. Or maybe we want it, but just very low setting. 8.201. To give it a little bit of shape. And if you hit A, normally if you hit A, yeah, there we go, it frames up your object. This is good. So this is just our base. This is 1.78 centimeters, maybe. I don't remember if this is centimeters or feet, but the great thing about this is you can always change this stuff at any time. It's all procedural. So let's just crank this up a little bit there. And if we look at our reference, you can see the base of the spine is obviously wider than the tip. So we're going to want to change that, which is under our branch, which branch controls how, like I always think of it as just the radius. So if it's the thickness or dealing with the thickness of the object, it's the branch. The spine controls the length usually and the direction of the length. So under our branch we have a radius. See how this is going to change the radius. So we'll just put up at the bottom to where we think it should be, and then get into our profile curves. So these profile curves, this one controls parenting curves, which is like an incoming connection. As Stalk, we don't really have that. And this one is going to control the radius profile. You can see it kind of has a taper right now. As we change this, see how it's tapering a lot. I think that's probably pretty good, and we're going to bring the base radius down. Up there. So that's a good start. So what to do next? So typically what I like to do with flowers is try to get shaping done first, and then bring in our models. So we bring in our models with the mesh fronds. So under fronds, then mesh. But what this will do, when you don't have a mesh loaded, this will just bring in a proxy plane, as you can see here. So this represents one piece of mesh, whatever mesh it would be. So this represents our flower. So I want to try to get this thing doing this type of shape. Get this card. So that's where generation comes into play here. So frequency, obviously we have one card. So now we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We got a bunch. So at this level, think of this as a stack. So a frequency will stack on top of steps, which then shared will deal with how the stepping applies to the spine itself. Again, you're gonna have to play around with some of this stuff. So I'm gonna look at our plant, and it looks like we have around a radius maybe 8. So we'll just go with 10. And this is going to be how many of these buds go around the spine itself. So right now they're all kind of facing at an upward angle. So let's change that. These down to kind of represent flowers that we've got. So under generation, we're going to want stepped and a per step frequency. So now when we click that, you can see now we've got 8 petals all going around the spine. Pretty cool. And they're all kind of facing in the right direction. And those actually look pretty good. The size is pretty messed up, so it's like the spine needs to come down, say about there. And if we're looking at our flower, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 5, say 6 different steps, level steps. So crank that up to 1. Now we have 6. You can also see we have rolling and spread, which gives a little spread to each level, which there is some spread in this flower, so we'll go ahead and add some spread in there. There. If we put roll to 0, yeah, these are kind of all going around how they should already, so we'll just keep roll at 0, maybe change that later. So our size scale, come back to our reference, we want these guys to stop spawning around here, and we're going to switch over to our other buds, and we want it to start here and stop here. So that's what this first and last will do. So 0 is bottom, last is the top. So bring this down to about there. This one up to about here. So now we know our petals are going to spawn in this area. Length is still kind of too spine. Pretty good. We'll have to tweak this once we get our mesh in there. So there's our buds. So let's go ahead and get them in. So to do that, you hit this plus under meshes. So just in case these tabs switch up between these sections, so click meshes, the plus, grab our main flower, import it. It's going to ask you if you want to make it a leaf or a frond, which we do in this case. You can also make it a branch, a surface, or a model part. For now, leaf is what we want. So now we can see, here's our leaf. It's pointed, green is Y, so it's pointed in the right direction. You can see how our orientation is really important. So this is how I positioned it in Maya. So to get these guys applied to our model, click this little hand and drag it onto the fronds. Now we get these. Voila. Pretty darn cool. Our lighting seems to be a little funky. Don't really mess with lights too much in here. Let's see if I can make it working better. Works good enough. So you can see, really fast, nice result. And this looks really close to this. Very, very close. It's like our petals are probably a bit too big, which we can change this offset in our size scaler. So we'll just a bit to like up there. Very good. So we are halfway there and in business. So next thing we want to do is add our buds. Since we have our stepping and stuff all pretty much set out with this guy, I'm just going to copy and paste, run another front in here. I'm going to grab these, the ones that we made before. I'm going to hide them. So now we've got these fronds. So now I'm going to go in here, grab our buds. Same process. Click, drag. Now we have our buds. So just like before, our first and last, we want the first step of these to go way up here. Our last to be at the very tippy top. Bring our other flowers in so we can get the blend right. Obviously these are way too big. So take our size scaler way in. And then this size scaler, we're going to want to put a ramp on this. So grab these guys before I forget. So we have the size scaler here. So we want to make them large at the bottom and a little bit smaller at the top. So shrink this in a bit. That. Grab these guys. I want to do the same thing in the reverse. So we want them to get small at the top, bigger at the bottom. Looks like we need to push those up a little bit. So first up here, change these guys again. Size down just a touch. Folks, we are almost there in a really small amount of time. So if you look, almost dead on. We've got a little bit of an angle rotation going on in these, which we'll add in here. So let's do that. So under our spine, we have a start angle, this kind of thing. So they start here, but then the angle goes up gradually to like this. So to do that, really simple. Start angle set. Put our little ramp here, and change the ramp so those guys point up as they get to the top. We may need a few less of these. It seems like if we reference, these kind of got too many of them. So nice and procedural, easy to fix. Just go down to frequency, down, frequency down, and then now these can be scaled up a little bit. Last to the top, just up here. Let's see, scale up. Just start fine-tuning things here. Yeah, that works. Maybe look at the start angle. It's not, because it's not a direct fall off, so we'll just double click. Let's start to shape these. Something like this. Gentle. I think we went down a little bit too much. We'll just add a few back in here. Yeah. Bingo. Looking good. So we are almost done. I am going to save this just in case. Let's go here. Just call this 01. Foxglove. Now let's get our generic leaves in. So for this one, I'm going to just make a new frond because we don't want to use those other settings. more generic thing. So let's grab that. And I'm just going to bring the leaf in right away. Which you can do that with the other flowers. I find it easier and it's way more simple to deal with. Having your flowers come in after you've got your placement done. What? I'm looking here. Need some start angle of. Let's kind of start to pull up. Yeah. And I think scale needs to come a bit. That. These are going to need some forces as well, and we'll add that in next after we finish our leaf here. So here's our leaf. Scale down. We're all kind of at the base. Way small. And back to our start angle, we'll just kind of bend it down here. So frequency, we'll just add a few in. Spread them out. Our start angle is pretty high because we're going to bend these with forces as well. Works for me. So forces. Forces are things like gravity and curl. They add a lot of life to your tree. So the first thing we're going to add a force to is these guys. So you select the node that you want to add a force to. Right click on forces down here, add, and we're going to add a direction. So this is our little direction icon, which is incredibly annoying. I don't know why they come in so big. We can scale this. Or just move. I still don't understand why they bring these in so big. Well, direction, we can just kind of move it off. Not having to look at it. So you can see the difference between with and without a force. So you have control over these under your forces tab. So now when I bring the force up and down, you can see how we get this shape. So because these guys kind of curl up like this, and then we're gonna take the start angle and pull it back down to get our shape. There we go. You can see, look at the reference, see how they kind of go like this. So you can see our start angle is going in this direction, and then the force is pulling this down. See it here. Very cool, very effective, very quick. And this can be I'll show you that in a little bit, but this can be edited and rearranged so you can get multiple flowers out of this. It's pretty incredible. So let's add some direction to these guys, and this force can be used on multiple nodes. You just click the node, go under forces, you can see the direction is already here. We have the same force applied to our leaves. Pretty cool. I might even add curl to those leaves. Not that much curl, just kind of a little bit to give them a little bit more shape. Again, icon. Here and out of the way. So there we go, folks. There is a foxglove plant. Very fast, very quick. A lot of the power is in modeling your own custom petals. Um, we might want to add a little bit of directional force curl to this to give it some more expressiveness. Let's see here. There we go. Lighting's still pretty shit. There we go. Better. So then next all you would have to do pretty nice. So next thing you would do, and obviously color and texture play a huge part in these plants, and we just don't have time to get into that right now because that's for another class. But this satisfies what you're doing in the modeling class. So to get this out, you just click on your main tree node, go to File, Export Mesh. It's going to export it as an FBX. We'll just stick this in a class file, glove, call it FBX. And then you're going to get the FBX exporter dialog. This is where you can select like a Maya or V-Ray or anything like that. Right now you can just click just a base Maya. You want to pick Y up right-handed because that's how our axis is oriented for our meshes. At least maybe it's the up. You can always change that. Textures, you can copy and do separate alphas, invert alphas, stuff like that. If you had textures, detail, branching, blah, 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 blah. It's all just texture stuff. And we'll hit OK. And that's it. And we'll go back to Maya. For some reason, Maya has created a bullet sulfur. Don't know why. Hide all these guys. Import FBX. FBX file. And it's going to come in pretty big. So we'll switch this two-sided lighting, and there you go. Now these are black in here because it's a single-sided geo. So this is the back side of a geometry. So you can always just on two-sided lighting to get this kind of stuff, but it's just the normals. So there we go. There's our foxglove plant. Pretty darn cool. This can be rendered in whatever you want and added to your scenes. So that is the end of this tutorial. Please post any questions, comments, issues, etc. And there we go. See you guys later. Thanks.